Okay, so we have a battle here against Electimortar of the Pokebeach forums, and here we go. He leads off with Jirachi, and I lead off with Hippowdon, and I'm scared of the trick right off the bat, so I'm going to go for the EQ, and he predicts that, and he makes a nice play and switches into Rotom to take the EQ. I don't want to stay in just because I'm sort of scared of the trick, sort of the Will-O-Wisp. I'm not sure if it actually gets that, but it would seem that it would. And so I switch into Gliscor, and he just switches right back into Jirachi. He gets his Stealth Rocks up, and I go for the EQ. And I figure that if he's choiced here, then he can't really do much else, although I wouldn't know why he would go for the Stealth Rocks if he's choiced. But anyway, I figure that he was going to predict the EQ anyway and switch into Rotom, so I went for the Toxic. Because when I switched in at first, it did not have the leftovers, and having Toxic and Sandstorm pile up is going to be really awesome, because I'm guessing that's going to be choiced. He switches into Vaporeon here, as I switch into Blissey to take a predicted hit from the Rotom. He's both taking residual damage from Sandstorm, but we both have leftovers, so it's kind of useless at this point. So he's gonna switch out again, just knowing that he can't do much to me, and he switches out into Flygon, and I go for the Toxic, and I get it off on him, and at this point I'm assuming that Flygon's choiced, just because I didn't see the leftovers, although I shouldn't really be assuming things like that. Although I'm pretty sure most Flygons are usually scarfed or banded. He goes for the EQ here, and now I'm thinking that if he's choiced, then he's going to be locked into EQ, and switching into something that completely resists EQ would force him to make a switch. So I go into Skarmory thinking that, and he goes for the EQ as predicted. So I mean, it's still a pretty good switch for me, and I'm still racking up toxic damage. But I'm predicting this switch here, and I go for Spikes. But instead, he's not choiced. He's he's life orbed, and he goes for the Fire Blast, and that is going to kill me. But even then, Toxic and Life Orb are going to be racking up some serious damage on this guy. So I'm going to go into the guy that I think walls him, and that would be my Hippowdon, because he's a physical wall. He can take like any hit. I'm figuring he's going to switch this turn, so I went for the Stealth Rock, but instead he roosted, and I really didn't see that coming. And that's going to be really useful for him. Although the Toxic is still hitting him for a lot, so I know he's not going to stick around anymore. So I just go for the EQ, predicting a switch. And in comes the Vaporeon, and I hit it with the EQ, which is going to do a fair chunk of damage, considering Vaporeon's a really nice physically defensive wall. And now I'm going to predict the Surf, and I go into Slowbro, just because if I went into Bliss, he might have predicted that and switched into something that can cripple or damage it, but instead he just went for the Surf. So I'm just considering Slowbro is a physical wall, it does about as much as I would expect. And this turn I'm going to go for the Toxic here, because getting a Toxic off on the Vaporeon would just be amazing. But I guess he predicts it, or he just switches out into Rotom just because he wants to Thunderbolt me or something. So now I know I can't stay in because I'm scared of the Thunderbolt, because that would probably OHKO me. But instead he makes a double switch into Electivire here. And I switch predicting the electric move, and I go into Hippowdon. This ends up actually being pretty favorable for me, because most Electivires go for the Ice Punch here. But that still does not do a lot, and I can kill OHKO with the Earthquake. So I just go for the Earthquake here, and he switches back into Vaporeon to take it. And this isn't going to kill. And now I'm predicting him to go for the Wish, predicting my switch. So instead of switching, I go for the EQ here, predicting his Wish, but instead he just goes for the Surf, because if he did go for the Wish, then the EQ would just kill him, and that would be epic. But instead he goes for the Surf, and that does a lot of damage, and I do get the kill with EQ, although I'm not sure. I would have gone for Wish, but it was a pretty good play, nevertheless. He goes into Garrett here, and I know he's going to DD up, but there's really not a whole lot I can do to stop it. I do have the Stone Edge, but I don't just want him to set up on me. So I switch into Slowbro, because Slowbro is a beast, and it pretty much completely walls Gara. Its best attacking option against Slowbro is usually the EQ, and that still doesn't do a whole lot, and at this point, I know I can live a +1 EQ from that Gara, so I'm going to take that, and I am going to live with 73 hit points, and I'm going to slack off, and that's going to restore more than the EQ ended up doing. So I know he's probably going to go for the second DD here, but if he goes for the EQ and I didn't go for the slack off, then that would just be terrible for me. So I ended up going for the slack off here. And I guess it just makes me feel better that I'm at full hit points, because I know I can take a +2 EQ and still barely live. And now I'm going to go for the Toxic here. And he sets up a third Dragon Dance, maybe predicting a switch, I'm not sure. But I do go for the Toxic and I get it off, and that pretty much just completely limits this thing's turns with Sandstorm going and the Toxic, and he doesn't have lefties. So that's going to be really great. Now I'm predicting the EQ because he has to start attacking, so I switch into Gliscor to take it, and he does go for the EQ. And I'm pretty much just stalling this thing to death because it's the only way I have to get rid of it. Now I'm going to predict the Waterfall. I could have gone to Slowbro, but it still would have done a decent chunk of damage, so I use my Hippowdon here as death fodder. So it was a pretty good exchange. I exchanged my Hippowdon for his +3 Gera. So, well, technically. So that was a good play on my part, or how I dealt with that Gera. And the Toxic will kill it. And now I go into Magnezone, predicting his switch into Jirachi, and I get it right, which is great. And I would have gone for the sub this turn, but I was still a little bit scared of the trick. So I just went for the T-Bolt, knowing that he could switch into Electivire, but instead he switches into Flygon to take it. I could have gone for the Hidden Power Fire, and that would have done some damage, although it probably wouldn't have killed. And now I know I can't stay in because I'm fearing the Ground type move, and I go into Slowbro here, just because I know it'll wall it pretty well, and I can hit it with a ×4 effective Ice Beam here. And so that's the main reason I switched into Slowbro. I could have switched into Gliscor to take it, but I didn't really have a whole lot to do against it if I had switched into Gliscor. But he really surprises me here and goes for the Draco Meteor, and I'm really hoping that I can take this hit, because I know I can OHK with the Ice Beam. And I do end up living it with 42 hit points, because Slowbro is a beast. Go for the Ice Beam here, and that is going to take it out. Although I get a crit, I'm pretty sure that's useless, because, well, it's going to probably OHKO regardless, because ×4. I even live the Sandstorm, so I'm going to have the switch advantage here, as he goes into the Rotom that I think is choiced. So I know he's probably going to have to lock himself into something to take this Slowbro out. So now that I know he's going to lock himself into Shadow Ball, I can switch into Bliss here and just completely wall him. Even if he's not choiced, I know he can't do a whole lot to me. So it was a pretty safe switch. And I know he's going to go into the Rachi here, but I just went for the Toxic. I'm not completely sure why. I guess it was not a good move. But it happened. So now I'm predicting the Iron Head. So I go into Magnezone to take it. And this pretty much confirms that he's choiced, because after this he probably would have went for the U-turn if he wasn't. So he's just hoping for the continual flinch axe here. And he's going to get a few. And I'm just going to keep going for the sub, because once I get the sub up, Iron Head is not going to break the sub, and I will not be getting flinched. So that's probably the best play. And he keeps going for the Iron Heads. Eventually I do get the sub up right here, and I'm going to go for a T-Bolt. And I really should have gone for a Hidden Power Fire, because if he had switched into Fire, I risk him getting the speed boost, although I still would have a sub up and I could just blow up. But it still would have been smarter to go for the Hidden Power Fire at this point. And he goes into Rotom, and I probably should have gone for the second sub here, although I just decided to kill it with Thunderbolt. And if I just felt like killing it, I could have just gone for the Hidden Power Fire to be safe, in case he would switch into Electivire. But it works out, so Thunderbolt ends up killing it. And his last Pokemon is Electivire. And that's pretty slow, so I know that after he takes out this Magnezone, I can probably just come in and revenge it with Gliscor. He does get the kill with Flamethrower. I do end up switching into Gliscor and hitting him for the super effective EQ to take him out. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. This is my first video upload. Good game, Electimortar, and rate, comment, subscribe, guys. Thanks for watching, and bye.